Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. So recently Professor Eugene Fama has said that Bitcoin is going to go to zero, right? And Professor Fama is not some, a normal person. He is a Nobel winning prize economist and he has contributed a lot to the modern monetary theory. He has given a concept called as efficient market hypothesis. This is one of the primary movers of the stock market. It has a lot of application. If you have gone to a business school, you would understand that this concept is critical, right? And this is taught at almost every business school. So he's not someone who is to be taken lightly. And if he's saying that Bitcoin is likely to go to zero, then we need to hear that commentary. I'll present the entire reservations he has against Bitcoin and I will present contrary data to it so that you understand both the viewpoints. If you are an investor in Bitcoin, of course, this is a little bit of a worry. So you need to hear my side of the equation also. I'm not trying to challenge his viewpoint. I'm just simply presenting data that kind of juxtaposes whatever he is saying, right? So with that spirit in mind, please listen to this video. You will learn a lot of nuanced points regarding finance. Okay, so let's jump right in. And there are 7 or 8 key slides that I will show you. And this was a podcast on which Professor Eugene Fama participated. It was done with another professor and his name is Mr. Luigi. I can't pronounce his surname. I'm just going to say Mr. Luigi. So basically the first key question that Mr. Luigi asked him was that what probability would you attribute that within 10 years, the value of Bitcoin will go to zero? So he said that there is almost a close to 100% chance that, that Bitcoin is going to go to zero. And I still believe in monetary theory. I may be wrong. So what exactly is monetary theory? So monetary theory simply means that central banks across the world, be it RBI, be it the US Fed, so they have a lot of power. They move the supply of money, that how much money printing they can do. So that is modern monetary theory. So Mr. Eugene Fama is a proponent of modern monetary theory. He feels that that is strong and Bitcoin goes against it. So that is his central argument against Bitcoin. So I hope you got the meaning of what modern monetary theory is and why he feels that Bitcoin will go to zero. So this was the start of that podcast, so to say. Then the first key argument that he made was that Bitcoin is extremely volatile. Now this is not a new argument. If you take a look at this chart, this shows that Bitcoin goes up and down. So this entire going up and down. So I'll just show it to you on the chart. For example, here is the Bitcoin chart, right? Right now it is trading at 96,000 US dollar. And you will see that, there is like a lot of up and down movement on the Bitcoin. Okay, so it goes up and down. This is the meaning of volatility. Things going really up and down, right? When it is up by 100%. When it is falling, it is down by like 50%. Okay, so volatility is there on Bitcoin. Now the counter argument is that, see, Bitcoin is a new asset. So of course the volatility will be there because there is not enough distribution on Bitcoin. What do I mean by that? That, for example, let's imagine that there are only 100 Bitcoins. Now out of those 100 Bitcoins, 80 will be holded by top 10 holders. Okay, so now the distribution of Bitcoin is not there. It's not like that those 100 Bitcoins are owned by 100 different people. So they can move the supply really fast, right? And if they want to sell it, then they might sell like a lot in one day. And if they want to buy it, then they buy a lot in one day. Okay, so due to this less distribution of Bitcoin, it is a problem. But having said this, you need to understand that Bitcoin is a fairly new asset. People actually started buying Bitcoin from 2009 onwards. When the questions were raised that, due to the modern monetary theory with the governments printing like crazy amount of money or banks on behalf of the governments printing crazy amount of money, we need an alternate system. So that was the existence of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a new asset, therefore it has volatility. And now Professor Eugene Fama viewpoint is different here, that he believes that volatility is bad, but maybe not, right? I mean, this is a point that you need to understand. This is a point that is up for debate. We all wish to achieve financial freedom through investing in cryptos and stocks, but learning about AI is also a great way of achieving financial freedom. Now, over the last 3 years, I have been following multiple career paths of several professionals, and there is a category of new professionals who are emerging in the market. They can build AI products without having any background in coding. If you want to learn how to do this and how to build AI apps without knowing any coding whatsoever, you can join a masterclass which is being held by Build School. Build School is hosting this masterclass with someone who has achieved financial independence through AI products. He doesn't know how to code and doesn't need to work a full-time job anymore because of his AI products. Applying these frameworks, anyone can learn how to build their own products. 300,000 people have already attended this workshop and have benefited greatly from it. It comprises of people from a wide range of backgrounds like design, product, sales, marketing, HR, operations. So this masterclass will equip you with exact roadmap to build and launch your own AI products that can set you on path to financial independence. You can check the links in the description and comment box to learn more about this masterclass and start your AI journey today. So, okay, just stressing on this point number one, he has also stated the fact that they have highly variable real value, and the kind of medium of exchange is not supposed to survive. Okay, now what is the meaning of medium of exchange? Now, for example, if you have, let's say, a 500 rupee note, now that is a very good medium of exchange in India, because if you go and take that 500 rupee note, give it to anyone, then you can buy whatever you want, right? So what does that 500 rupee note facilitates? It acts as a medium of exchange, that you are exchanging that 500 rupee note and are getting something in return. For example, like, 10 packets of Uncle Chips or 10 Pepsi cans or whatever, right? So this medium of exchange feature is there on fiat currencies like US dollar, INR, etc. But that medium of exchange feature is not there for Bitcoin, and this medium of exchange feature is going to get killed because of excessive volatility on Bitcoin. Now, do I agree with this viewpoint? Yes, right. I completely agree that Bitcoin is not a great medium of exchange. For example, some countries like El Salvador, it has its official currency as Bitcoin. Okay. Now there it is a medium of exchange. But in India, what is the value of Bitcoin? The value of Bitcoin is different, right? It is probably a store of value. Now, what is the meaning of store of value? A classic case study would be gold. That, for example, if 100 years ago, 1 gram of gold could buy you, let's say, 1 cow, then even that 1 gram of gold now would buy you that same cow. Okay, but 100 rupee note back in like 1947, right? It could have bought you maybe like 1 cow, but that 100 rupee note now will not buy you anything, right? I mean, not much, right? So that is the meaning of store of value, that gold, for example, preserved its store of value. Bitcoin, for example, is likely to preserve its store of value. That is one feature of Bitcoin. Now, another feature of Bitcoin is medium of exchange. So that I agree with that, in majority of the locations in the world, Bitcoin is not really an efficient medium of exchange, and it probably will never be. Okay. But having said this, we can't discount the fact that it is a store of value. That's another utility of Bitcoin. Another key utility of Bitcoin, or maybe if we strip everything apart, then one of the primary use cases of Bitcoin is that it gives you freedom money, right? Freedom money in the sense, for example, if you have gold, if you have mutual funds, stocks, real estate, all of this can be confiscated by a government. Now, many people are there in the world who do not want their assets to get confiscated by the government, and Bitcoin is one asset. If it is there on your hard drive, like if you have physically stored it on your hard drive, a hard drive looks something like this, and then it cannot really be controlled by the government. And that freedom nature of Bitcoin or an asset class is really appealing to a lot of people. So yes, Professor Fama is right on this bit. I'm not contradicting his viewpoint on this, 100% agree. But having said this, these are some of the other features, store of value or this freedom money aspect. This is not discussed on his podcast per se. Okay, so his next argument was that Bitcoin lacks an intrinsic value. Now, intrinsic value kya hota hai? It's a use case. For example, if gold is there, what is the use case of gold? You can make jewelry. If land is there, then what can you do on a land? You can probably build a factory and start manufacturing something, right? Or you can do farming on it. So that's intrinsic value. Now he says that, see, if you consider Bitcoin only as digital gold, it doesn't have a use case. It's just paper, not paper, it's air, not even air. Okay, so essentially there is no use case. Okay, now this is yes and no, right? Yes and no in the sense that, for example, if blockchain is there, now you need to understand the concept of blockchain. Now blockchain is like internet. Okay, now if I ask you that what is the utility of internet, what will you say? That, okay, I can probably build an app called as Uber, and that Uber app allows me to hail taxis, that I can go and then take a taxi. Or I can build an app called Wisdom Hatch, right? And which is like Akshat's website, right? Which I'll go and check and see what courses he's running or whatever. And then I can probably take and study some finance courses. Okay, so that's the utility of internet. So what happens is that if you study like the blockchain network, there is like a building block, right? And then there are layer 1, 2, 3 protocols. So layer 1 is Bitcoin or Ethereum. Layer 2 and layer 3 are more like applications built over it. Okay, so Bitcoin is layer 1. Now, when it comes to layer 2, layer 3 apps, a lot of apps can be built up on a blockchain network called Bitcoin. So while you might think that this network or internet as a thing does not have value, but the apps built on it have value. So a lot of apps are getting built here, right? And they have utility. For example, there is something called as smart contracts. Now, what is a smart contract? These are self-executing codes, right? A code could be designed in a way that, for example, if you are right now, if we buy like a property, okay, hota kya hai ki, for example, I will go and get like a demand draft made and I'll give it to you. Then next day we'll go to like the registrar office and then we will sign. But what happens that, I give you a check or a DD on 12th and 13th we are doing the registry, and you don't show up to the registrar office, then what would I have to do? I'll have to go to the court, go to the police station, file a case, waste a lot of time, and pata nahi kab milega paisa, okay? So then it becomes a headache. Now, this is a genuine problem that happens. Now, what can be done, right? An alternate system could be that we can put this in a smart contract format that, hey, if this check gets deposited and cleared, this property will automatically go into like Akshat's name, right? Something like this. So this is a smart contract. Now these type of functions or functionalities can be built using blockchain network. This is already being done in countries like UAE, right? A lot of countries are experimenting with it. So yes, one could argue that, hey, it does not have like a tangible kind of a feeling to it. But having said this, this is a building block on which further applications are made. So please consider Bitcoin from that angle. So the next point that he explained was that it violates the monetary principle. Now, what exactly is the monetary theory? And if I have to explain it to you in like maybe like 5 sentences, this is what I would say, that monetary theory simply means that, hey, we have like banks and what can they do, right? For example, 2020, like COVID situation comes and everyone just gets scared. The factories do not get built, right? Buildings do not get built because builders don't want to put money in such an environment. People get fired from the job. Then what happens, right? I mean, the entire economy stalls because there is no supply of money. No one wants to spend money in that economy. So what is it that banks or governments can do? Well, the RBI or the government can go to the RBI and tell that, what, we want to throw more money into the system or India's economy. And what do we want to do? We want to raise the supply of money. We want to increase the supply of money. How exactly? We will ask RBI to print notes, right, or print money, give it to commercial banks. Those commercial bank will give loans to people like Akshat, and Akshat will build a factory, or like, some other person will build a new application or whatever it is, and they will go and hire more people. That will stimulate the economy. So that, in simple words, it's called as monetary principle. Now, Bitcoin does not have any mechanics in play because there is no central governing authority. It is an autonomous code which is running on the blockchain. So there is no central authority. Whether COVID comes, whether 2008 crisis comes, whether pralay comes, whether like floods come, nothing is going to happen. You're not going to increase the money supply or decrease the money supply in one go. Now, is this good or bad? Well, many people will say that, hey, this is very bad, right? Because we need monetary policy per se. People like me will say that, no, it is fine. We don't need inflation in the world, or at least artificial inflation in the world. So this is more of a theoretical debate, right? This topic in itself will take like 5 hours for someone to debate on. But to cut the long story short, that just because it violates the monetary principles of money does not mean that that asset is bad. So there was another interesting point that Professor Fama made. He said that I am hoping that Bitcoin will burst because if it doesn't, we have to start all over again with monetary theory. Now, this is very interesting. Actually, hua kya tha ki first we used to be on the gold standard, right? I mean, roughly like till 1973, that is when we abandoned the gold standard. Before that, we were on and off the gold standard, right? Before 1920s, we were completely on gold standard. Now, gold standard meant that, hey, if 100 rupees need to go into India's economy, then the government will keep 100 rupees worth of gold into its locker. So if someone comes and tells the government, boss, I want gold, I don't want this 100 rupees, then the government will have to give them that 100 rupees. So since then, we are purely on monetary theory, so to say. Now, is this like great? One could argue yes, one could argue no. There are pros and cons to it. Now, that's a new system that came up after 1972, 1973. Now, Professor Fama is saying that, boss, if this monetary theory or if this Bitcoin thing does not go under and it becomes like critical or super valuable, right, after like 20, 30, 40 years, then we have to rethink this entire monetary system. Okay, so he's not like giving a criticism of Bitcoin here. He's saying that, hey, if this case study gets proven, that then that's like a real challenge that we need to deal with. So okay, so the next point that he explains is that it is unsuitable as a currency. Now, he has made the statement that cryptocurrencies are such a puzzle because they violate all the rules of medium of exchange. Okay, so first and foremost, just giving a little bit of context, there are thousands of cryptocurrencies. Donald Trump launched a cryptocurrency of his own. Okay, Melania Trump launched a cryptocurrency of her own. There are like, so Dogecoin is there, Fartcoin is there, and Dunia Bhar ke coins are there. So not every cryptocurrency is Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is a type of a cryptocurrency. For example, it's like saying that HUL stock is bad because all stocks are bad. No, it's not like that. There are a subcategory of stocks that might be really bad, but HUL, at least in India, over the last 20, 30 years has performed well. The business still has value, etc., etc. So this is like one quick point that I wanted to make. Okay. Now, unsuitability as a currency. Now, to be honest, Bitcoin is not here to replace currency to begin with. It's not as if that Bitcoin is like making some play ki we are going to replace like US dollar, or we are going to replace like INR, or we are going to replace like Pakistani rupee or whatever. No, it's not even trying to do that. Okay, what Bitcoin is simply trying to do is that it's trying to establish itself as an alternate asset class. Very similar to how gold is an alternate asset class, silver is an alternate asset class. Similarly, Bitcoin is also an alternate asset class. So making the point that it is unsuitable as a currency, maybe. Now, similarly, gold is not a great currency either, right? Can you if you have to buy a Pepsi can with gold, how will you go and pay it in gold, right? Can you shave off gold and give it to it's just a nightmare, right? So similarly, a lot of asset classes are not suitable for currency. So I think this point is not really relevant from that angle. Okay, so the next key point that Professor Fama brought up was security concerns. Okay, so there is always incentives for people to corrupt the blockchain. You have more and more people entering whose sole purpose is to corrupt it. If they can bring together enough computing power, they can bring it down. Honestly, this is less of a finance question and more of a tech question, right? As far as I have read, so I just wanted to set the record straight that number one, Bitcoin has never been hacked. Now, exchanges that facilitate Bitcoin buying and selling can be hacked, no doubt about that. But Bitcoin, it's like saying that internet, has it been hacked? Not really, right? But Uber as an app, can it be hacked? Probably, I don't know, right? So something like this, right? So far, Bitcoin has been hyper sophisticated. It hasn't been, sort of corrupted by people who have had enough computing power. Second, more importantly, what is it that people are waiting for, right? Why, if it was that easy to sort of capture like Bitcoin's network by capturing the network, capturing the proof of work consensus mechanism, which is a slightly technical topic, we'll leave it for some other video. Then what are people really waiting for, right? Bitcoin has been in existence for the last 15 odd years, 15, 16 years. People have been investing in it. So what exactly are they waiting for, right? So that's a simple point. If something is hackable and if it is a multi-trillion-dollar asset, it should have been hacked by now. So what exactly are we waiting for? That's my counter question here. So that's the best I can do to explain it. But if someone is from a tech background, you can talk about the security concerns there. Second key point, that every system doing a lot of transactions is going to have a problem like this, one way or the other, a problem of verification and a problem of who is enforcing the rules. Okay, so this again is a tech question. Honestly, Bitcoin works on something called as POW, or proof of work consensus mechanism. It's quite foolproof. No corrupt transaction happens on the blockchain network. This goes beyond the scope of this video. I can't go into nitty-gritties of proof of work is, how it exactly works. But if you read through the entire commentary of what proof of work is, how the consensus mechanism on Bitcoin is, what the verification mechanism is, the technology seems to be fairly sophisticated. And if we believe that, hey, this technology is not going to work, then similarly, we need to entertain the possibility that even artificial intelligence in the future will not work. So we should not encourage that. Robotics should not work. We should not encourage that. Quantum computing can be corrupted. So even that we should not encourage. So these are all counter arguments. I'm not trying to push you that, hey, go one way or the other. Okay, so the final point that Professor Fama said on his podcast was that energy consumption concerns. Okay, so you can't have a whole financial system built on this because it requires too much of energy or too much of computing power. You can't do it. Okay, it scales exponentially as soon as the number of transactions go up. Now this is completely wrong. Okay, now why is it? Because there are incentives. So the way the blockchain or Bitcoin blockchain works is very simple, that basically in order to run this blockchain, running the blockchain means that you have to transfer data from point A to point B in a correct manner, that it should not be corrupt data. So there is verification of this data that happens, right? And verification is done by miners. Okay, and these miners runs machines like these, right? These are called as mining machines, and there are mining farms, and they have incentive to verify कि अच्छा ठीक से हो रहा है काम, right? Now they consume energy, right? They are the major energy consumers, so to say, on the network. And the way this works is that basically as this depends on supply demand dynamics. Okay, so supply and demand. Now, for example, if the energy cost becomes too much, now why will these miners mine? Okay, we'll just leave the network and go away. Okay, and as more miners go away, then the supply of miners will come down, right? And as the supply of miners come down, then there is more incentive for miners to mine. So this is a self-sustaining supply and demand dynamics which takes care of this energy consumption concerns. So it's not as if that blockchain will become less effective if more people are using it. In fact, it will become more effective. Again, very similar to internet, right? So over time, internet or the usage of internet became more efficient, okay? In terms of processing speed, in terms of bunch of different things, in terms of sending email correctly, vagera, vagera. So all that again requires energy. Now, just because people transition from working physically on ground to like doing computer work, right, using more and more internet, did not mean that there was more congestion on the internet or the internet slowed down. No, it didn't happen that way. And similarly here again, this energy consumption concern is not really a concern per se. Now then comes the final point from my side, that okay, if you're a Bitcoin investor, what is it that you need to think about? Should you still be bullish? I am bullish. I am still maintaining my position. Bitcoin has been the biggest asset in my, or rather the asset that has given me biggest gain. Almost 6% of my portfolio is Bitcoin right now, right? Pure Bitcoin. This has shifted in 2022, right? There was massive harassment, right? I mean, as you guys know, right, that when I used to talk a lot about cryptocurrencies, but then over time there was just the entire image that, you know, Bitcoin is just some scam currency, this, that stuff, and it just leaves no room for people to speak about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies. So even I stopped speaking about it, but I was guiding my community, I was guiding my students to how to get Bitcoin, etc. And I myself have been building positions in it, and I have been bullish about Bitcoin. Am I bearish about Bitcoin in the next 3 to 5 years? No, there is no reason to, right? So to me as an investor, I am still keeping my 6% intact. In fact, I'll take it up to probably 10%. I feel bullish on Bitcoin. Can my investment thesis change with time? Of course, it can change with time. That's it's not, nothing is written in stone. But as of now, I do believe in Bitcoin. I would say that this does not mean that you put all your money into Bitcoin, but having some exposure to it kind of makes sense, right? Given how Bitcoin is evolving, the type of returns it is giving. So yeah, so I am a Bitcoin believer. Let me know what do you guys think, right? And what are the concerns that you have? And tomorrow maybe I'll do like a Q&A on my YouTube member community, right, about Bitcoin, right? And what other investors are thinking about it. In case you are a serious user or a serious investor, I would highly encourage to check out that community. I'm putting the link in the description and comment box. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.